Hi, everyone. Chief Rankings Officer Payton Soicher on the triple option with Paul Catalina. Last night, on Tuesday night, we had the latest release of the College Football Selection Committee. This committee is in charge of coming up with the top 25 teams for the college football playoff. There's a lot to go over, and we need to discuss what is making sense and what doesn't make sense. So let's go ahead and dive on into these top 25 rankings. So here we are on ESPN that has the list of the college football playoffs. The top four teams, I think, make sense to everyone, right? You had two big losses up top, Georgia and Miami. We'll get to that in a second. But Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, those were the teams that just naturally were already in that position to move up. They both had easy wins or a bye or whatever the case is. So they slide on up. Indiana and BYU made a little bit of movement, right? Tennessee was above of Indiana and BYU. So BYU jumps ahead of them. Tennessee stays there because naturally they should shift up too with the losses of Georgia, Miami, but they got jumped by Indiana and BYU. Really interesting why all of a sudden they are ahead of Tennessee. I don't know what really the logic of that is, but if we start to jump down, this is where things start to get really interesting. So here we are with Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia. Ole Miss just beat Georgia. That makes sense. Georgia loses to a ranked Ole Miss team on the road. Miami loses to an unranked team in Georgia Tech on the road. Georgia was ranked third. Miami was ranked fourth. Why does Georgia drop 9 spots, but Miami drops 5? That math does not math with me. I don't understand this. Now, one of the cool things about rankings right now is we have an algorithm that is trained on previous historical predictions. So we have a good feel of an algorithm that has an overall understanding of how the selection committee typically votes. Now, there are new people in the selection committee. That's fine. But typically, these are how college football experts should be ranking these types of scenarios. If you look at the top 4 rankings, we were dead on, right? The College Football Selection Committee rankings are right here. The rankings right now algorithm is right here. So everything is from the perspective of the selection committee. So for example, the selection committee released BYU as the number 6 ranked team. If we look at rankings right now, BYU is the 8th ranked team. So the selection committee was 2 spots higher than where the rankings right now algorithm has them. So the top 4 teams all make sense. The bottom, the 13 through 15 all makes sense. Really, 13 through 18, right? You have CU and Kansas State that are flip-flopped. Kansas State beat CU earlier in the year, so I have the understanding of why the algorithm might think one way, but other people might think another way. But this middle ground right here, even the algorithm is confused on where the selection committee is lying. So there's a couple of other things that were really interesting to me. South Carolina made a really big jump. They were 7 spots ahead. The rankings right now algorithm had South Carolina at number 28. South Carolina ends up at number 21. So even a 3-loss South Carolina team, a really good strength of schedule, playing really competitive games against the teams that they've lost, they're being rewarded at that number 21 spot. Another team that was on the complete other side of the spectrum, Army, who has not been trailing in a single moment this year, only moved up 1 spot to 24. The algorithm had them much higher at number 18. So that was a big miss for the algorithm. I don't know if that's an algorithm problem, or I don't know if that's something that the selection committee is not valuing as much as they have in previous years. If you want to get into Army doesn't have a very good strength of schedule, and that's why they haven't moved up. Indiana doesn't have that great of a strength of schedule. Indiana's killing teams. Army's killing teams. It's kind of hard to make that comparison. Also, if you're going to go off of the strength of schedule argument, then why is Georgia so low? Why is Georgia lower than Miami? That doesn't make any sense, right? So you can't just go to one metric and say strength of schedule is the answer here, or it's the number of points that you're winning by, winning margin, who you play, road wins, losses, all these different types of things have to be taken into account. And there's so much that really can be grabbed in for these rankings. So at the very end of the day, we are so interested in what the definition of a ranking really is. How much do we really care about where the rankings are, and where can we go from here? So that covers the reaction. I'm Chief Rankings Officer Payton Soicher on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina.